Welcome back to That Dad Guy. It's April 10th, 2025, and once again, it's time to go through my father's stamp collection and show you what's in his album marked America, not US or Canada. That's how he's got it labeled. We've been going through alphabetically, going through all the different countries in the Americas, except for those two, and doing a little history along the way. So if you're tuning in for the first time, make sure you like, you subscribe, you leave positive comments, you share with other people, and you put the notification bell on so you don't miss out on anything. Well, this week's topic technically isn't in this book because my father didn't have any stamps from this particular country we're going to talk about. At least that I can find, unless he's got it somewhere else hidden. And it's not really its own country either. So we're going to get to that too, where you might find the stamps, where they're hidden, where they're in the Scott catalogs. Those orange books back there, those are my Scott catalogs. I have a set from 2009. You can get a more modern set. You can get them electronically now. You can borrow them from your public library. They're always useful to have when stamp collecting. So I encourage you to, if you can't get your own copy or get a used copy like I've done at a stamp show, then make sure you check out your local library and see if you can get a copy just to go through and put your stamps in the right order. Well, let's get to today's topic. We're talking about Guadeloupe. Now, Guadeloupe is part of France now, but you can find it in the Caribbean. You can see it's just above Dominica. We've talked about that before too, and some of the social economic issues that goes along with being in that part of the world, and who was there when, it's right now, it's an overseas department of France. It's made up of 6 inhabited islands: the Basse-Terre, Grande-Terre, Marie-Galante, La Désirade, and Île-des-Saints, which is actually 2 islands. And then there's many uninhabited islands, all part of this little area. The capital is Basse-Terre. The currency is the euro because it's part of France. The Arawak people were there originally, but in 1493, Christopher Columbus passed his way through, and he named the island Guadeloupe. And the Spanish tried and failed several times to colonize the islands, but the locals forced them away. It wasn't until 1623 that the French expelled any of the Spanish settlers that were still there and started to colonize the area. The French first colonized the area in 1635 by bringing in French farmers with the Compagnie des Îles des Amériques. So that was the company that was involved in kind of setting up farmland and things and controlling it and shipping things back to France. In 1640, Compagnie des Îles des Amériques goes bankrupt and the rights of Guadeloupe were sold. In 1650, plantation agriculture was established by bringing in African slaves to work. And right away, the slave says, we don't really want to be here. And they had a resistance. And by 1656, mass desertions were happening for almost the next 2 years until the French talked to the indigenous people and said, could you stop helping the slaves escape? So something was put in place and a deal was made, and once again the slaves were kind of kept where they should be working along, and the indigenous people didn't help them escape anymore. Ownership changed to the French West India Company. In 1674, it was annexed by France, much like Martinique was at the time. 1685, institutional slavery was enforced under Code Noir, which led to a boom in the sugar plantation economy. After the 7 Years' War with Britain, Britain takes control of the islands. But in 1763, there was the Treaty of Paris. France chose to give up the rights to their Canadian colonies in order to save Guadeloupe and Martinique for themselves. So they thought that here in Canada wasn't nearly as important as having tropical paradise with sugar plantations in Guadeloupe. So that's what they traded off to Great Britain at the time and didn't look back. 1720, coffee was introduced for plantation here. 1775, cocoa beans became a major export also for Guadeloupe. And when I mean here, I mean in Guadeloupe, not in Canada. In 1794, Britain recaptures Guadeloupe in the turmoil of the French Revolution. Between 1794 and 1798, Victor Hughes was the governor. He came and he took the area back over for France. He abolished slavery. Some of the black slaves now took leadership roles and were kind of controlling the country until 1802, when a French expeditionary force arrived under Antoine Riche-Pensée, who prompted the rebellion led by black officers who had been rulers of the colony. The black freed slave rebels, knowing they had no chance against this French expedition that arrived, led this movement led by Louis Delgrès, committed mass suicide by blowing up their gunpowder stores. And in 1803, slavery was reestablished. But in 1810, Britain recaptures the island. So lots of people wanting this space. In 1813, the Treaty of Stockholm decided, or they're going to give Guadeloupe to Sweden now. So Sweden now has Guadeloupe. That all happened because there was a French national who went to go and become Prince of Sweden, take over the monarchy that was basically not doing anything in Sweden at the time. So a French-born person went and became head of the monarchy in Sweden, but they backed Britain during the Napoleonic War, and so Britain gave Guadeloupe to Sweden as kind of a payment for helping out in the wars. But in 1814, the Treaty of Paris was signed, and Sweden gave Guadeloupe back to France. 1848, slavery was abolished in the French colonies. 1849, the emancipation of slaves got the vote. In 1854, though, the French decided to send indentured laborers, from their French colony of Pondicherry in India, and they were brought in to work these colonies now that there weren't any slaves, and the French Indian citizens didn't get the right to vote until 1923. In 1936, Félix Aboué became the first black governor of Guadeloupe. In 1946, the colony of Guadeloupe became an overseas department of France. 1952, there was striking factory workers in Le Moule who were shot by the Compagnie Républicaine de Sécurité, resulting in 4 deaths. It was deemed the massacre of St. Valentine. In 1967, racial tensions exploded into rioting after a racist attack on black Guadeloupean Raphael Balzinc resulted in 8 dead. In 1974, with growing talk of independence in Guadeloupe, Guadeloupe was named a French region with as a result of the growing independence talk. In 2007, Saint Martin and Saint Philately, excuse me if I pronounced that incorrectly, it was one of the Swedish colonies. They voted to separate from the jurisdiction of Guadeloupe. And in 2009, the cost of living, the lower wages, unemployment levels were higher than anywhere else in the European Union, and the worst in all of France. They had mass strikes and kind of rebellions asking for better conditions in Guadeloupe. That's kind of the rocky history of this area. It is a beautiful area. You can see through all the pictures. It has a beautiful harbor that the British desperately wanted in order to ship out sugar plantation stuff, different exports that they had. That's why it was a well sought after region. That's why France decided they wanted to keep it rather than their colonies in Canada. And it has become a integral part of France as we see it now. As far as stamps go, though, they issued stamps from 1884 until 1942. After 1942, they received the same stamps that France has issued. So if you're looking for them in one of your Scott catalogs or your Stanley Gibbons catalogs, go look under G rather than under F for France, and you will find all their issued stamps there. Well, that brings me to not my father's collection, but what I've added into it since. Let me show you the few stamps that I have found. You can see from this early page that the first stamps that I have are these ones here that are beautiful images. Well, it's the same image, but done over in different colors, showing the process. And then I also have these ones that I put in Vario pages. And you can tell that they're earlier on stamps. These ones I've got a few duplicates of. And once again, we're at a couple duplicates here. You can see this one though is the 1 cent and the 3 cent, almost identical. And that is all the Guadeloupean stamps that I have found so far. Are you a collector of stamps from Guadeloupe? Do you collect them with your French collection? Do you collect them with your Americas collection? Where do you store them? Where do you identify them as? Is it something that you've collected before? Is maybe something that you didn't know anything about this nation? These stamps that have come out, and now maybe it's something you're interested in. They're not that expensive stamps to collect. If you want them, I bought mine at a local stamp show. They cost me 10 to 15 cents each, and there weren't a lot of them to be found, but maybe where you are, you can find more. Maybe you're in Europe and you have these stamps in with your European collection because they're a department of France. Maybe you're a collector of the Americas, and so you've associated them, put them maybe in a Caribbean book. However you've decided to collect, it's your choice. It's a hobby. It's fun. So thank you for once again joining me as we look through my father's stamp collection and the additions that I have tried to make along the way. Next week we'll do another country, and we'll do a little bit more history, and we'll see where that country ends up. All right, for you guys, have a magical week. What, Polo? You say like, subscribe, share, and tell all your friends.
Who's a good boy? Who's a good boy?
Bye. This Saturday is once again another one of my monthly stamp shows to go to, so I'm going to try to get a few more stamps for the upcoming weeks of countries that we've been identifying, and see if we can add a few more stamps to the collection to show you.